So I'm very excited that Haircut 100 are doing a reunion tour. This is the first tour of America, I guess, since 1982, right? I mean, you've toured here solo, but
Mm.
um, it's not the first time you've reunited because I have to tell you, I prepared for this interview by watching, it's on YouTube in full, your band's Reunited episode from VH1. And that was 20 years ago. That was
Yeah,
2004.
20 years ago. Wow, time does fly.
Yeah, so I mean, I love that show. I was obsessed with that show. And I am I correct? Was that the beginning of the different iterations of reunions that have happened over the past 2 decades? Was it that show?
Um, well, we just had many over the years. We had one right after Haircut where we played part of Live Aid. We played at the Albert Hall. Yeah, that was great, that one.
See,
And every time we get together, we just knock it out the park, so to speak. We just something magic happens, something Haircut energy takes over, and we just those songs, the ingredients are right, and it just goes.
well,
So.
I have to say, I guess that kind of makes sense because in the bands, I being obsessed with Bands Reunited, I've watched all the episodes, and sometimes when they supposedly ambush the people and say, "Hey, do you want to reunite?" Like
Hmm.
the band members put up some kind of a fight or resistance, and like in yours, you're all like, "Yeah, sounds great." Like none of you said no, or even
Yeah, no,
said no at first.
we can get together easily. It's staying together. That's what haven't worked out, and why this time is so different.
Okay, tell
Because
me.
I don't know why it's a constant surprise this time, but everything has been falling into place easily, unlike any other time. It's like a gift this time. Everything from I was backstage at this a Let's Rock gig a few years ago, well, maybe 3 years ago now, and I was talking to this guy Joff, and he put some bands on, he's a promoter, Kilimanjaro, and I said, well, where if Haircut 100 played today, where would they play? And he said, oh, Shepherd's Bush Empire. And I went, oh yeah, I love that gig. Anyway, he phoned me up a few days later and said, right, I booked the Shepherd's Bush Empire. And I went, whoa, hold a minute. I haven't spoken to anyone for ages. Um, he said, well, do you want to do it? And I said, well, yeah. So I had no idea what was going to happen, but the power of yes,
The
it's
power of
like,
yes.
yeah, it's that thing of I didn't know how it was going to happen, but then it was the 40th anniversary of Pelican West. So we're talking fondly about our album and just, about fond times and doing interviews. And I thought, I feel another reunion coming, but is it going to stay together? But this time we played the Shepherd's Bush Empire, which was amazing. And then BBC Radio 2 Piano Lounge invited us to come on, which was out of the blue. And then from that, there's these, because missing thing was management. We never had any management, and we can't organize anything. We're just like, don't leave it up to musicians, or footballers or any sport to have. You've got to have a manager. Um, and we got a phone call from Wet Legs management, and it's
Oh,
like, wow, okay. They said, yeah, they're looking like for a band like Squeeze, and they manage the Manic Street Preachers and Telemetry as well. It's great bands, and so they specialize in bands. So we just said, do you want any help? And we were like, yes, thank you. And that's the reason why. Then we did a UK tour, and then everything is happening. And now why we're playing America, because they've managed to put it together. So that's
yay.
the missing ingredient all those years ago. And every time since is now in place. And we didn't ask for it. It's just like this
It's awesome.
time it's now or never. It's just like, so that's why it's happening.
I'm very happy it's happening because I'm finally going to get a chance to see Hairco 100 perform in
Oh.
my country. But I do want to go back to the beginning because, like I said, I watched this Bands Reunited episode, which
Mm.
I thoroughly enjoyed, and they sat down and did interviews with all of you individually that went to your history. So I don't know how sensationalized it was, but they all talked about the fact that Hairco 100 basically imploded or dissolved at its peak. And for people watching this in the States, they probably might not realize how massive Haircut 100 were in the UK. Like
Mm,
Pelican West was the #1 album of that year. It was just like you were huge,
mm,
seemingly overnight. So I'd love to talk with you about what happened, because in this Bands Reunited thing, there was talk about how you kind of had some kind of, I don't know if I want to use the word, well, they use the word breakdown, but basically
mm.
that I mean, you were so young, weren't you, like 19 or something? And all of a sudden
Yeah.
you were so massive. Tell me what happened, because I mean, it's kind of like an epic rock and roll fable that a band becomes this big, and then as quickly as
Mm,
they seemingly got big, it's
mm.
over. At the time, it seemed over.
Yeah, that's the pressure. I think well, I know I worked the hardest. You know, I did every interview and yeah, I had a lot of pressure and I didn't go to school and they didn't have pressure classes.
Hmm.
You know, it was like, so I was just fumbling my way through it really. Not dealing with it very well and not using a crux. There wasn't like I couldn't turn to drugs. But I did go to the Arista Records doctor. I remember once, and he said, "Here, I have a cigarette." So so I did. That started me smoking. I thought, "Oh, maybe this is my crux," but it wasn't. And then he gave me some pills that were. I found out that had been struck off the list. They weren't supposed to be given to people, and my jaw locked.
What pills were they?
No idea what these were. I was just young, and I would take anything to not feel the way I was feeling because I was very, all this great stuff that our dream had come true. You know, our wildest dreams when we were in a rehearsal studio, in Jason's garage in Beckenham, where Les Graham and I were like, you know, watching XTC and Talking Heads and Squeeze and being so inspired, and we've taken all our influences up to that moment, and we were just in trying to learn our instruments and be like our heroes. Here we were, but it had happened, and what was all this? This supposed to, I'd looked, the Beatles didn't seem to have that going on, what is going on with this? Why am I feeling like this? So I didn't know why then. I mean, I know now, but I didn't know then. I was just dealing with it, trying to deal with it. And this time, this Arista doctor gave me this stuff, and my jaw locked. It was just like, so I was at home, going out of my mind, and I didn't know why I felt like that, but it felt like the end of something. Anyway, the Arista doctor then turned up at the doorstep, uh, and I was carted off to this place that I think they cart like Ozzy Osbourne off to and everything, But they're in normally because of alcohol or drugs or something. But I was just in there just due to pressure. So that's when I think they did give me some Valium and just calm down and everything because I was just a fireball then of energy. If you play those songs, they're like a dynamo. It's like a building up the energy and suddenly it's like kind of, and also the pressure of parents. My parents really changed out of it, and they were my stability. They were my stable rock, and they just became sycophantic. Uh, yeah, so I was living at home there at the time, and so that was not the relationship we'd had before. The relationship we'd had before was very honest and open, like get your washing done. You know, get it done. Get a move on. Get out of, when are you going to get a flat? When are you going to move back with Les and Graham? Um, when are you going to do this? So it gone from that into, oh, we'll get your washing done for you. Do you want anything? And there was fans lined up outside and in, sometimes sitting in the living room, waiting outside my bedroom door when I'm waking up to get some socks. And, it was very strange, very, very strange world.
Were your
Uh,
parents, when you say sycophantic, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, them saying they want to do your washing on the surface sounds nice. Like, were they trying to
exactly.
glom onto your fame,
Oh,
or?
yeah. I mean, right now I'd be like, oh, it's an amazing thing, but at the time, my relationship with them and their relationship with me had completely disintegrated. It had changed overnight. And I suppose to
Mm.
somebody in 1920 that, that was just like to adjust. So it was one of the many adjustments that you had, like you couldn't go outside without causing a bit of a stir both ways. I'd go out and I'd walk down the King's Road and there'd be really nice stuff, and then there'd be people wanting to kind of fight with you because it's what England's like. It's a bit, it's a sort of island of duality a little bit. It's good and it's
Hmm.
like everywhere, but there was that to deal with. So it went from one extreme to another. So dealing with that, there was lots of things that I wasn't dealing with well that I didn't realize that would come. I thought it was, because I'd seen it from the outside. I'd gone, look at Andy Partridge. He seems to be having a ball,
I don't think
you
he
know.
was actually, because
No, and it turns out that he wasn't either. So
I don't
it's
think the
like,
Beatles were. I think the
no,
Beatles had their issues too, obviously.
yeah.
But
So it's not like you wish you planned and you got for success, because we just wanted to be on the Old Grey Whistle test, you know, like we'd seen, or Top of the Pops or anything. And you just think you'd go on there. But then the reality of when it happens, it's totally different. And everything going on. And the key thing that we just didn't have was any kind of manager.
which is
So
crazy.
we're dealing with this all ourselves, and it was a chaotic environment, very chaotic, nothing stable. The coach was always filled with lots of people we didn't know. This person that wanted to manage us, this person that said they were managing us. It was a bit of a chaotic mess. So it was yeah, so that's why now having everything, you've got perspective, you've got hindsight, you've got management, you've
Yeah.
got people just helping, and it's just down to the music and everything. It's like a dream come true to finally, it's like this is the success in our wildest dreams coming now
Yay.
because we didn't think it was going to happen at all. We'd written it off, really.
Yeah.
So many attempts. And I suppose it's that thing of when you do actually let go completely, maybe it's when you do get what you were looking for.
I love that you're having that happy ending now, and I'm sorry to dwell on the past. I just feel it's such a fascinating story. What was at that time? I guess this would have been
Mm.
1982-ish. Like the last straw. Like how did you actually quit the band or tell the band you didn't want to do this anymore? The I'm sorry I keep talking about this band's Reunited. It was really good
Yeah.
TV, by the way. Uh
Yeah.
that there was a Birmingham gig or something that was like the final at that time, the final gig. Obviously, it wasn't the final gig. I'll be seeing you in
Mm.
Los Angeles soon enough, but
I think the final straw was in a rehearsal when, they'd been rehearsing up new songs without me and writing them, and Mark was singing them, and it was a
mhm.
different band. It was my band, it wasn't my band anymore. It wasn't our band, it wasn't a team anymore. And I felt like, what am I going to do? Merch. So that was it. That was the sort of the Spinal Tap moment.
But that's so weird because I mean, you literally wrote all the songs on
Yeah.
Pelican West and the lyrics. So like, why were they even trying to mess with the formula of? I mean, I can understand them wanting to have an input and maybe that happens with
Mm.
bands where maybe people who didn't write on earlier stuff say, "Hey, I want to write. I want to expand my
Mm.
role." But like for them to sort of like um poach all the duties, why were they even doing that?
That's no idea. And
Was
I
it
don't
what?
care. I don't care because it's like it's so good now. I
Yeah,
mean, we did like when we did the 18 dates at the beginning of the end of last year, any of stuff like that, anything from the past evaporated. It
that's
just
so
didn't
cool.
mean anything. Absolutely didn't mean anything. Um, Nothing. It just every gig was more bringing things up to date. Because when you bring everything up to date, it's me. It's just kind of like you're not dwelling in the past at all. You're just living in the present, aren't you? You're just so 18 times, like every show got better and better and better. And and it just didn't matter anymore. So any issues that any of us had, it just wasn't there anymore. It's like magic. It just went. So it's always a process of it's always an evolutionary process, isn't it? Like at the beginning, like around about Shepherd's Bush, there probably was some stuff going around,
Mhm.
some doubts. I think Les wasn't, thought, isn't this going to work? You feel like, oh, you don't want to be let down again. You don't want to get your hopes up. It's that sort of stuff. And then Mark was stuck on credits, and he wanted credits, and him and Phil to have credits, and so they stayed in the past with those issues there. And then anybody that wanted to actually just like actually be in it for the original dream turned up on stage at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, and that's why we're here now, because at the end of the day, it's just up to the powers that be whether you want to be in it, because you either choose to stay in the past or you bring it up to the present day. And that's why now, every time we play, it's like total present. Every time I do Fantastic Day, it's like, this is the first time I've ever sung this.
So
First
cool.
time, fresh as a daisy. Bang, you know. I'm not interested in the recording of it and that stuff. That's all just done. But playing it now is just, it's amazing. And it's still, you haven't got any say in it. It just overwhelms you, and you're being sung and played. It's just like haircut power. It's really strange.
It's
Yeah.
it's nice. I mean, I can see your smile. I can see the joy radiating out of you. It's nice to see, because maybe
Mm,
given all the stuff that we were talking about how it was kind of traumatic at that time,
mm,
and also how there probably was understandably maybe some resentment from the rest of the band. Like, band drama is a common thing. It's nice to see, like, there are some people who wouldn't want to revisit this. They'd be like, that's in the past, particularly you,
mm,
because you had success as a solo artist. It's not
mm,
like, you don't probably need to do this. So it's kind of like, why is the timing, besides all the stuff about management and
mm.
and logistics kind of falling into place, like, why mentally is this such a good place for you to be doing this, like really committing to it after all these years?
Well, it's, I don't get this when I do it myself,
Oh,
you know? So I mean, yes, I've, I've used a similar sort of template, but there's something about actually being in a band with the people you dreamt with, in that rehearsal room at Jason's Garage in 1977 with all those dreams and an H&H amplifier and some reverb, and just singing Fantastic Day over and over and over, and it sounding quite punky because that's what we were aspiring to then, because that's what was happening then. And then many years later, you're standing on stage now, and you know, here we are, same three people, you know, and we've still got the same dream, and it's just something. I really like it. I really, really am enjoying that. I'm really enjoying it. I keep saying to myself, why are you doing this at 63? Why are you doing that? But actually, it's just the kind of I think it's the team. I think
wow.
I don't like being in a team,
So
you
how
know.
come you, after you left Haircut 100, if you liked that vibe, why didn't you start another band?
Um yeah, I think I always had record companies and people and managers and stuff saying, don't,
Oh,
oh, it's too late. It's too late to start bands. Oh, you got to go back. Well, we'll just use your name. Oh, you built up your name, and it's, oh, you don't want to go back to doing that. And I've always wanted to start bands. I start bands almost, I imagine them, and because I think like a band. I think like a band member. So I've always wanted to start bands. I just haven't. And for good reason, because there's only one band, and that's Haircut 100. It's a great name, and
it
it's a
is a
great
great name.
thing. You know,
It is a great name.
it's a really good name. I've got friends who start bands together and they're great bands and everything, but they haven't got a great name.
It's
It's
important.
missing. It's like an important thing.
I'm wondering if you ever regretted um leaving the band, even though you did have a lot of solo success on your own, because of missing, missing that dynamic. You were never quite able to capture that sort of lightning in a bottle again that all of you had back when you were in the
Yeah,
garage.
well, for a while I definitely missed not sticking up for myself and sticking up for the band, and saying, Stop this, let's stop this tomfoolery and just sort it out." But
Mm.
I slowly just, I mean, that doesn't matter now, does it? So um yeah, obviously, I think all of us have probably thought that, like, well, that was a bit of a interesting career decision. Well, we probably all thought that, but now it's it's a fantastic career decision. Whatever's happening now is nothing we can do about the past. And so we're
Well,
here.
that begs the question when we're looking to the future with
Mm,
with the ball rolling and you clearly feeling so invigorated and
mm.
excited about this. Are we going to get new music from Haircut 100? Are we going to get a third album, the follow-up
Mm.
to Paint and Paint?
Well, I don't see that as really the Haircut album personally, but I think there's
It's
like
not
Pelican
that,
West and
yeah, it's
yeah,
not even on Spotify, by the way. I checked that
yeah.
out.
I mean,
It's
I know
not
that
there.
that's just my view,
Mm.
but yeah, there's a song, new Haircut 100 song that just it's called The Unloving Plum, and it just sounds. It's just Haircut 100. It's got the Haircut 100 energy. It's got that important ingredient in the recording, which is live. We played it. It's got Blair's power. It's got Les's bass line that's like, why'd you play that? It's got Graham and I weaving together. And it's just really like a burst of kind of energy. It's quite fruity in a kind of like the song after Lemon Fire Brigade. So yeah, so like a
Plums.
positive look at an unloving plum, it's really good. Um,
So are we going to get I'll correct the question. Are we going to get the follow-up to Pelican West? Are we going to get a proper Haircut 100 album? Is this Unloving Plum song going to get, kind of open the door to more writing and recording?
well, that's the good thing about having this, management that specialize in bands because um, we went in to do 3 songs. They just wanted 3, and we did 10. So so we already got like 10 songs there, and then plus, and I was doing an album at the time, so that morphed into this Haircut album as well. So I had all this stuff that I'd written during COVID and things, and we started playing that live. We played this song called Soulbird on the tour as well.
What's
So
it called? Soulbird?
Soulbird, yeah,
Bird, like bird.
Soulbird,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, sweet.
Just wanted to check.
And there's another one called just a bunch of songs, and they're it's eclectic, and yeah, it's definitely Haircut 100. You can definitely it's that magic ingredient. I mean, we're putting the songs down with went to Sean Reed's studio in Hackney, who's in Dexys, and he was like recording us, and he just went. We put a takedown, and he was like, "That's I get it. That's like Haircut 100. That's it, isn't it? It's the sound of Haircut." And we're all just like laughing at each other. It's the thing of once you get Blair, he's like the fire, like in Hal's moving castle. The fire in the middle of that makes the castle move. And we're all like Hal's moving castle, and it's
So,
just a brilliant thing. It's the magic of bands.
I mean,
You
you
know,
had such a
I'm really
distinctive
enjoying
sound
that.
too. You had such a distinctive sound too. When are we going to hear, like, what are the plans? I mean, I guess we're going to hear some of this live when you tour, I assume, but what,
Yeah.
in terms of you releasing stuff, when are we
Well,
going
in
to hear
in
this?
America, we're playing the hits and the unloving plum because we've only got half an hour, so we're gonna just like yeah. So
But when are we going to, like, is there a plan now that you have management stuff to release, if not an album, singles, EP? I mean, I want an album, obviously. I've been waiting, what, 42
well,
years, whatever, I never heard Paint and Paint. So like, I agree. I mean, no diss to it. I've like literally never heard it. So I can't comment on it, but
yeah,
Pelican West is a
I
classic.
liked everything except I didn't think the lyrics were up to standard, but I definitely would have been open to singing some of those songs if we'd have morphed it together and stuff. But that wasn't meant to be. But the playing was obviously really good. It's
But I
like
want new music, like,
yeah.
as I'm sure you do actually. Like, so yeah, do you have any
Well, can
kind
you
of,
imagine the anticipation that we have and how we
yeah,
want to? So I feel it with you. It's like a long time coming, but we're just in the process of
okay,
recording it now. Um, yeah, it's lovely. Danton Supple is who did Rush of Blood to the Head. He's fiddling with bits now, so he's
amazing.
putting his magic wizardry over stuff.
I'm
So
so
it's all going
excited.
on, Lindsay. It's all going on.
I hear so much of the Haircut 100's influence. Like I was listening to Pelican West, kind of, gearing myself up for this interview. And uh honestly, like it didn't I don't mean this as a diss because I love 80s music, but did not sound like an album from 1981, 1982 era. It sounded
Mm.
like, I don't know, it sounded like some hip New York band from like, indie sleaze era, because like a lot of that guitar, that dancey guitar and stuff, I hear that in a lot
Oh.
of, actually even Wet Leg. Now that you mentioned them, I mean, I could
Mm.
see a Wet Leg Haircut 100 tour and it would actually sonically make sense. Like, let's put that out there. Let's make that happen. But
Yeah,
do,
definitely.
do you hear that? I mean, it's
Well,
a
we
little
were
different.
offered to play with Vampire Weekend this year.
They're playing like literally tonight in LA as we do this interview.
Oh, okay.
Get
Yeah,
over
in
here. Get on the plane. They're playing the Hollywood Bowl
well,
tonight with the English
oh
beat.
really?
With the English beat. You should just hop on the
Wow.
plane. Get on the
Ah,
Concorde. They don't exist anymore, but you know what I mean. Like
yeah.
that would actually make sense.
Mm, yeah. Well, we were really up for it, but it was when we were in America. We were
Mm,
offered it in UK, so we couldn't do
okay.
it. But next
But
time.
in general, like, as I mentioned, you were the biggest band of your album debut year. Was it 82? It was 82, right?
Yeah.
So
Good year,
big.
82.
It was a really good year. It's actually probably honestly my favorite year of the 80s for music. But you were the biggest band in England, like chart wise, sales wise that year. Here you were big, but I don't, not as, but you were big because of MTV. But
Yeah.
they played you guys a lot. And even in commercials, they had like the Tarzan swinging scene and like the MTV commercials here.
Did they?
But they did. And I want to ask you about that video in a second. But
Yeah.
do you kind of feel like there's a little bit of unfinished business here? You've influenced bands like you just said, Vampire Weekend, but you only toured once here. That was over
Mm,
40 years ago. Then, then everything paused for a very long time. And, MTV was still very new. MTV had only been around for a year. Like, do you
mm.
feel like, yeah, there's unfinished business in America that, hope this tour and hopefully a new album and stuff could tie the bow on it?
Well, creatively, yes, definitely. And there's unfinished business, as in we just didn't tour, like you said. So hopefully next time we'll come back and do a long set, full band, because we've got to drop one brass player. It's like the few ingredients just for
Yeah.
budget, because of visas and stuff like that, and only playing a short set. And um, so yes, there is unfinished business in that way. And we can't believe it. It's like being thankful for the fact that it's actually continuing and happening. That's kind of like, you know, totally unexpected.
Absolutely. Tell me about that the Love Plus One video. A classic, an MTV classic. I'm from a city, by the way, called Tarzana, which is named after Tarzan because Sir Edgar Rice Burroughs used to had a ranch in Tarzana.
Oh, where's that?
It's in the San Fernando Valley in LA. So
Ah,
so
oh, I hear the San
Tarzan,
Fernando Valley is lovely.
it's all right.
Yeah.
I grew up there, so I'm not like, yay, but anyway, I digress. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
Tarzan, there's two things I would associate with Tarzan, and it would be, well, three things actually. That Baltimore's Tarzan Boy and the video for her for Love Plus One. We were like swinging on a vine and like a
Yeah.
leopard, like a loincloth or whatever. Videos back then were quite creative. And
Mm.
like not on a budget. Like that video doesn't look like it costs a lot of money, but it's great fun. Can you tell me about that video? Videos were so new then too.
They were, and we had no idea what was going to happen. It was a really busy schedule, and it was like we're just in Wandsworth, where we turned up every time to did these videos. We didn't had no idea what was happening in them. We'd liked, you know, I thought it was nothing to do with Love Plus One. I thought, because it was nothing, I'd envisaged this, Lederhosen and this glistening lake, um, and Anna, my mother, who was, had a Swiss father and stuff. So what I perceived as a song about ring Anna, my mum, um, where's it go from here? It just didn't really have any kind of reference. But there I did. I found myself with the wardrobe man saying, "Oh, okay, let's get this loincloth on you." And the next minute I'm on a loincloth, and quite a few guys have said that was their first, that was the moment they knew they were gay.
That's
So
flattering.
that's cool, isn't it? Yeah. So it was a moment. Who'd have thought? We just turned up,
It was a
you
moment.
know, in Wandsworth, and it was, yeah, that's
Who directed that video? Do you remember?
no idea.
I could look it up. I bet you I bet you it was someone of no, like, Julian Temp, someone like that. It has a certain look to it. I actually want to talk about, I talked about how iconic and distinctive Haircut 100's sound was, but the
Hmm.
look was very interesting. Like, you were kind of very, actually kind of like Vampire Weekend. You were very preppy looking, like you had the little sweaters tied around, kind of tennis outfits, tennis casual. It was a very distinctive look, like ABC, who always kind of like were dressed very sharp in like the gold suits, or Duran
Hmm.
Duran, who always had like a certain look. Like, it was very iconic that you had this kind of like English countryside. This is how I'm looking at it through like
Hmm.
my American eyes, that it was very like English countryside, like boarding school. Like, to me, you look like, aristocrats.
Hmm.
Where'd this look come from?
Well, we definitely weren't aristocrats. We were more like aristocrats, probably. It was, and we were aspiring to be. It was American influences that we had, like The Graduate, like corduroy jackets, and I mean, we exchanged the dialogue of that film and Heartbreak Kid with Charles Grodin, and everything American. I mean, we were obsessed with it growing up, and the bands that we loved were from America. So we had the English side where I think there was. I mean, I used to go up to. We were living in London, and we were living in. Les Graham and I lived in a room above a flower shop in Gloucester Road, and Kensington was a creative area there. It wasn't the
Mhm.
kind of posh area that it's become now. So around Ken Market was where everybody got their clothes. So um, it was about being able to afford stuff. So
Mm.
the stuff that was cheap was that English aristocrat look, or the corduroy
Interesting.
jackets, and all the American stuff, like the Slick Willie stuff from like Converse and or you know bowling shirts and things. So that's not what was going on in the high street. So
Yeah.
what was going on in the high street? You just left and you went up to Ken Market, and if you wore what you wore on Ken Market, that's when you looked completely unique and different. And it was all about us as a band trying to live and breathe being in a band. We would socialize together, so we would dress up together. Graham had Converse, and they were blue, sky blue. Les's was red, pillar box red, and mine were yellow. The sort of yellowy orange color. So we go out wearing those, and people would say, "Oh, are you a band?" And that would be a massive compliment to us. And then we'd try our name out on them. What are you called? And you'd say Haircut 100, and they'd say, no, generally the reaction was why.
Not
So,
like that's a great name. Excellent name.
well, sometimes afterwards, but initially it would be like they would giggle or say
Mhm.
why or what was that again? You know, and that intrigue and question mark is the reason why it stuck with us, you know?
So, the word I was looking for that you said was posh. You looked posh to me, you guys. And that
Mm.
was sort of, I don't know offhand what kind of background you came from, like if you were working class, middle class, or whatever, but there were a lot of bands that had that aspirational look, like ABC, who were from Sheffield, Duran Duran, who were from Birmingham. The guys in Spandau Ballet were absolutely did not grow up posh, but they looked so posh
Mm.
because there was a whole like kind of aspirational fashion thing going on then that I find very
Yeah.
fascinating.
It was aspiring to be something other than what you were. I mean, we weren't posh at all. We were kind of, I mean, Beckenham, South London was definitely not posh, and we all went to tough secondary schools, secondary modern schools. Yeah, Les in Croydon, Graham in Sydenham, and I went to Beckenham, Kelsey Park, and stuff. And they, anybody that knows those schools knows that it was a survival course, in growing up. I mean, the first day that I went to school, I remember somebody being knocked flying, you know, knocked out spark out right in front of us, and we're kind of like standing there thinking, oh God, what is this going to happen? And it was quite tough. And South London generally, and Bromley, and around that where all the kind of Bromley contingent, where all this,
Hmm.
because punk had happened out of there as well. So I think because of the punk thing and rebelling against that, suddenly it was about moving into the 80s and aspiring to do something else. And so we were all up in London. Everybody's moving up to London. Everybody from the suburbs was coming up to London and going to the similar clubs, and they were dancing. They wanted to just dance now and aspire to be better in, do something creative. There was a melting pot of creativity. I mean, all the clubs we were going to, it was always Spandau were there, and
Did you go
everyone
to the
was just
Blitz?
there.
Did you go to the
Yeah,
Blitz?
I didn't go to the Blitz. We were just slightly after that.
Okay.
We were just a bit later than that. Yeah,
But
we'd have loved to, but we probably wouldn't have got in. Yeah.
not with your posh outfits? Oh, you weren't, I guess you weren't really new romantic though. Actually, that brings me to the question of like when you had that look, which I find so distinctive, but it wasn't like roughly pirate blouses or like the adamant look or like
No,
or a goth look.
we weren't new romantic and didn't sound new
Yeah.
romantic either. There wasn't any synths in there. It was just, like Clive Davis when we went to America said, "You're like Chicago with you know, he didn't say on amphetamines, but he'd signed Chicago, so we were kind of like this British band with a brass section. That wasn't a new romantic thing at the time. I mean, it did then. There was lots of. I mean, we had brass because of this band that we supported called the Tropicanos, and they had a brass section, and so we said, do you want to come in when we did favorite shirts? And because we had a sax player, but we didn't have a brass player, so that's what was adding as we go. It was evolving so quickly with everything.
Yeah.
We get an idea here, and you know, it's cold on top of the pops, get some jumpers on. We got some jumpers. Should we all wear the jumpers? Yeah, okay, let's ha ha. And the next minute we're just so known as the Jumpers Band. But that was how last minute it was.
Wow.
And
Did you say Clyde Davis called you Chicago on amphetamines, or did you call yourselves that?
well, he kind of thought, I mean, he signed Chicago and he didn't say that because I can't quote him on that, but
It's a good
he
quote.
loved bands like that.
Hmm.
He signed, yeah, he was into soul bands and things as well. And I just think he took a shine to us because of our musicianship, as opposed to, the fact that we were the new hot thing. We would, at that time it was OMD probably, Human League and things, and we weren't like that. And so that's probably why we don't sound from the 80s now,
Kind
maybe.
of, that's actually makes a lot of point because I was today years old when I realized, I don't know why I haven't realized this. You probably do get lumped into the synth pop era of the 80s, and there
Mm.
are no synths in Haircut 100.
No,
It's crazy. I think a lot of people probably don't even like kind of probably just assume there's a synth player in the back somewhere, and there's
yeah.
not. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty.
And
Then
we're
I think
closer to the beat. We are closer to the beat because we had the same producer and we chose Bob Sargent because he'd, made Mirror in the Bathroom and Best Friend and all those sparkling beat records, which are gleaming. Even today, they sound fresh.
they absolutely do. Do you consider yourselves Haircut 100 ska adjacent in any way? You're obviously not a ska band, but there was
We were, we were at one point. I mean, Les Graham and I were many bands because in England, youth cultures were always coming, and you didn't not join the youth culture that was coming along. You were you every youth culture that came over, you were right there. You're a mod and you're a punk and you're everything. It's just so you embraced some of it more than others. I mean, Graham really embraced the punk side because I first met Graham outside the Wimpy Bar in Beckenham High Street, and he was
oh,
full Clash, head to toe in Clash gear. But I liked going to see punk, but I never dressed that way, because I was into more art pop and I was into the Feelies and
hmm,
early Talking Heads and things. And Deaf School, I really liked art pop, But that's bands and influences. You know, Graham was that, and Les really embraced the whole mod period very closely, but just not in the shoe department. He still had red kickers on.
Very important detail. This all
Yeah.
makes so much sense though, to hear all the stuff we're talking about with the influences.
Mm.
There's elements of all of it, but that's why the sound is so distinctive and not so 80s time capsule. That's why
Yeah.
Vampire Weekend wanted you to tour them. It makes total sense. So that's why I am excited to hear new music from you guys, because I'm sure it will sound very fresh and not tied to anyone, not tied to 2024. Will we get it in 2024? That will be my
Yeah. Well, that's what the management are aiming for. You know,
yay.
so that's why it'll happen. If it was up to us, it would be, 2044.
Oh, because you
Yeah, well, it's just
perfectionist.
we're musicians, you know.
All right. Well, listen to your management now that you have management. Get it out this
Yeah.
year, because we want your. I can't wait to hear. What is it called? The Unforgiving Plum. I can't wait to hear that
Oh,
on tour.
the single is called The Unloving Plum.
The Unloving Plum. Okay, not the
Yeah.
Unforgiving Plum. All right, Unloving Plum. I can't wait to hear that, and also, of course, all the hits on the tour. I'm very excited to finally get a chance to see you live, and I've really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Oh,
Congratulations.
likewise, Lindsay. We're
It's nice
going
to
full botanical this time.
yes, it's nice to see you so happy and excited about everything that's happening, and I share your excitement.
Oh, we're really happy. We're really the UK tour was a good vibrations all the way, and the American one's going to be too.